which will tell you a few basic things about this discipline called statistics. But remember that this statistics is not the name of the paper, but we will actually be studying statistics. The name of the paper is quantitative techniques, but we will actually be studying only one kind of a quantitative technique, and that is statistics. Okay, so there we are. Is the screen visible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So, uh, what we will do is we will try to discuss the uh, discipline of statistics in terms of an introduction. And in introduction, we will try to find out what is the purpose and what is the limitation of statistics. What is the purpose and what is the limitation of statistics? Just give me a minute. I'm trying to work out this. Okay, so now I'm able to sort out the problem which I was facing. Okay, so here I go. What statistics is, or more importantly, what it is not. So let us first get one fact very clear, that statistics is not a method by which one can prove almost anything he or she wants to prove. So never ever say that since the data shows this, therefore it is proved. Say, for example, if you are told that the average score of a batsman is 45 runs, therefore the batsman is very accomplished batsman, this may be true or this may not be true. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it is not something through which you can say that therefore it is proved. Since the data supports my argument, therefore it is proved. The data may be a support, but still it falls short of what we call proof. So this is the first thing. That is why we sometimes say that statistics neither proves anything nor disproves anything. So what does it do? So basically, it simply tells us about some supporting statistics which we can use for advancing our argument. And remember that you should always be on guard against possible misuse of this tool. Now, let me give you one very simple example where we may be misled because of some possible statistical information. Suppose someone tells you that company A has doubled its profits in last 1 year. Now, if this is the statement, then what conclusion will you draw about the performance of company A? Normally, what kind of a conclusion will we draw? That the company A has done exceedingly well. Because how many companies are able to double its profits in just 1 year or double its sales in 1 year? But there is a catch here. Can any one of you tell me what is the catch?
So that we don't know the original numbers. So if their profit was say 500 rupees, it is now only 1,000 rupees, and which looking at the number is not very big.
Absolutely wonderful answer. Congratulations, dear. Absolutely mind-blowing answer. Very good. Thank you very much for such an awesome answer. So if a company had just earned a profit of 100 rupees or 500 rupees, and if it has been able to double it from 100 to 200 or 500 to 1,000 rupees, does it mean that the company has done exceptionally well? Of course not. But in order to project its positive image, the company will not reveal all the information. All that it will tell you is company A has doubled its profit. Take another example. And this time, I would like someone else to answer this question. Suppose you are told that accident rate among male drivers is 20%, whereas accident rate among female drivers is 25%. Therefore, female drivers are more dangerous to drive with, or male drivers are safer to drive with. Now, suppose this is the information which has been given to you in a newspaper. Will you accept it or will you probe a little more?
Sir,
We
it could
depends upon
depend
what is the
on
total
the
number of
number of
males
So
and
it will
females.
depend on number of
First,
employees,
like,
male and female.
We would ask for the sample size.
Very good. Excellent. You have hit the bullseye. Absolutely fantastic. I'm really very glad to have such intellectually stimulating students. Absolutely wonderful. So without questioning the numbers, we would only ask for additional information, like what is the total number of male drivers and total number of female drivers. Suppose out of 20 female drivers, 5 have met with an accident. What is the percentage of accident? 25?
25%.
Okay. Now, out of, let us say, 2 lakh male drivers, 10,000 have met with an accident. What is the percentage?
So
5%?
10%.
10,000 is what percent of 2 lakh?
5%.
5%.
5%.
5%.
So basically the percent is very low, but the total number of accidents is
Huge.
very
more
high,
compared to that.
isn't it? So that is why we should not accept information given as they are, because they may mislead us to believe something and they may be unethical. They may be trying to tell us something which is not correct, but they want us to believe something. So you should always be on guard against possible misuse of statistics. As a last example, I will draw 2 line charts and you have to comment on which is more and which is less in terms of something. So this is chart called A, this is chart called B. This is the line, the profit line with time. This is profit. And this is also profit. And this is time. And this time it is this. This is the profit line. So in the left-hand side diagram, we have profit line of company A and on the right profit line of company B. Whose profit is rising more steeply or at a higher rate?
B.
Company B.
B, sir.
B.
Okay,
B.
B rather than A, because A is flattish and B is very steep, right? Is that the reason why you are saying so?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Remember, but anyone who has a different point of view, anyone who has a different point of view, that what some of our friends have suggested may not necessarily be true.
Sir, it actually
Sir,
depends
the
upon
turnover.
at what profit they are increasing. Like initially, the company A might be raising from 1,000 to 2,000, and company B might be raising from 1 lakh or 1,000 to 1 lakh. So it all depends upon that side, on the numbers again, basically.
Yes, sir.
And we are also not aware of the scales on which we are measuring both of them.
Absolutely wonderful. Now, this is the most correct answer. What is your good name, friend?
So Shubham Ashish Khalga, sir.
So, Shivam.
Sir, Shubham, sir. Yes, sir.
Shubham. So, Shubham has hit the bullseye. Basically, if you change the scale, the same data will give you two different lines, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
For example, suppose this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is one scale. And this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and so on. So, if you have to show an increase from 1 to 2, whose steepness will be higher? First case or the second case?
First case.
Look, here I will show you how. I'll just show you how this is done. So just say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. This is time. This is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So this is, say, let us say this is here we have 2.0. So from 1 to 2, this is the point. But here from 1 and this is 2, this is the curve. So which one looks more steep? The second one, isn't it? Are you convinced or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me show you once again. So this is 1, this is 2. This is period number T1, this is T2. So this is a curve. Now, this is, say, 1.0 and this is 2.0. This is 1, this is 2. So this is 1 and this is 2. So which looks steeper? First one or the second one?
Second one.
Second one.
Why is one steeper?
Because the scale is comparatively less.
Because you have changed the scale. You have magnified the scale in the second diagram as compared to the first diagram. So the same data shows you two different slopes of the line. So that is why you may again be misled by some of the graphs that you come across in newspapers. So what is the takeaway from this short discussion? You should always be on guard against possible misuses of statistics.
Excuse me, sir.
Remember that statistics is not simply a collection of facts. It is simply not a collection of facts. Now, what I'll do is I will show you a data file, which is what is collection of facts. Is the data file available on your screen? Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the data file. Now, what does this data file show? Let us see. This is the first person whose ID is 1. This person is male. This person is male. See, what is this? Gender. This is gender. So this person is male. And what does this show? Birth date. That is 3rd of February 1952. What does this show? Education, job category, salary, beginning salary, time already spent on the current job, experience before joining the current job, and whether the person belongs to a minority community or doesn't belong to the minority community. So let us just go through the information available for the first person. The first person is a male who was born on 3rd of February. This is the American way of writing their birth date. 3rd of February. For example, here this is 15th of April. This is 22nd of August. So 3rd of February, he has received education for what? 15 years, and he is working in a category of job which is indicated by the number 3. So what does 3 represent? We have not yet known it. What is his current salary? $57,000. What was his salary when he began his career? That was $27,000. What is the time that he has already spent in the current job? 98 months, which is what? 98 months is roughly 8 years and 2 months. And then what was his previous experience? That is experience before he joined the current job. That was 12 years. Does he belong to minority community? He doesn't belong to minority community, because if 0 stands for no and 1 stands for yes. Now, this is a collection of facts. Now, how many people have we collected this information from? We have collected this information from 474 people. So this is what we call collection of data. But what purpose will such a collection of data serve? So remember that statistics is not just collection of data. It is much, much more than collection of data. So we go back to the presentation. Statistics is not simply a collection of facts. Then, I told you in the very beginning that statistics must be combined with research methodology. Then only statistics makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Now, when we utter the word research methodology, what do exactly we want to say? What is it that we want to say? Research methodology. So any student who would like to say, why am I continuously using the word research methodology, even though it is a separate discipline and I am teaching not research methodology, but statistics? Anyone? I have uttered this word maybe 6 times.
So
Why do you think so?
So the research
So
methodology
because research methodology helps us in collecting various datas, and the datas are being used in statistics for interpreting and taking out results for valuable informations.
Okay, partly
yes,
you are
sir.
right, but I'm looking for more information, more or a
So
better answer.
statistics is the tool for research methodology.
So because according to
Stat-
the research methodology, we search for primary or secondary data, and in primary data we collect the responses.
I'll tell you what. First, you answer this question. Why do we do research?
So
To give a-
research is done to research is a process which we do to find a result of something that we want to know, or any information whether it is true or not.
So it is
Okay,
done to
anyone else?
Together facts and data about a particular stream which we want to research.
So to come down
Okay,
to a
any
valid conclusion.
Sir, to expand
conclusion
the
about?
knowledge base or regarding something that we already know or are willing to know about.
So to prove a theory.
No, I'll tell you. I
To
would
find
like
out that is
you
So to find out
find
for
out.
what we are collecting the data.
Yes. Basically, we can be very simple in answering this question. Very simple. Research is an investigation into a problem. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Research is what?
An investigation into a problem.
It is investigation of a
Problem.
problem. So, when we investigate a problem, then what is it that we want to know? Why problem occurred? What and who created the problem? What can we do to ensure that such problems do not occur in the future? So basically, we want to solve a problem for which we want to do research, right? Am I right?
yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So research is basically inquiring a problem in order to solve it. And the method that we adopt in order to investigate a problem or do research is called research methodology. And one of the research methods is what we call statistical method, which is what we will discuss in these classes. Statistical method. So can we separate statistical method with research method? Can we separate the
No,
two?
no, so we can say that statistical method is a part of research methodology.
So
So
statistical method is dependent on research methodology.
Yeah, you must use statistical methods in order to solve a research problem. That is why you will frequently find that in my lectures on statistics, I am frequently mentioning the term research and research methodology. Okay? All right. Basically, remember that statistical method is not the only method to do research. There are many other non-statistical methods of doing research also. And one of them is called case study method. In case study method, you need not necessarily collect quantitative data. You need to collect some information in order to solve some problem. Say, for example, why Tata Steel has been such a successful company. If you investigate this question, that would be called a case study method. And a case study method need not collect large amount of quantitative data, and it may not require many statistical methods in order to solve that problem. or why PM Modi is such a charismatic leader. What makes him so acceptable by the masses in India as well as abroad. This is again a case study, and the method which we use in order to investigate this kind of a problem will be called a case study method. So remember that statistical method is not only method of solving a research problem. So the question is, what statistics is? In order to answer this question, we have to simply look at what functions does statistics perform. So basically, there are two functions which statistics performs. Two major functions. The first is called the descriptive statistics, and the second is called the inferential statistics. Inferential statistics. So let us first find out what is descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is reducing huge amount of data to manageable proportions. Huge amount of data to manageable proportions by using such measures as arithmetic mean, percentage, standard deviation, correlation coefficient, and there are many more. Skewness, kurtosis, there are many more. So basically, what is it that we do under descriptive statistics? We try to reduce huge amount of data to manageable proportions. So what I'll do then is, I will again take you back to that data file which I showed to you a little earlier. Now, look at this data file. Such a huge data file. It contains 474 rows and how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have information on 9 different, and not 10, 9 different variables, and we have collected information on 9 variables from 474 individuals. So how many pieces of information do we have? Anybody who would like to answer this question? How many pieces of information?
470. It would be 474 into 9.
474 into 9. Very good. So it is roughly 4,700 information, roughly 4,700 pieces of information. Is it not very huge? It's already very huge. Now, what conclusions can we draw from such a huge amount of raw data? So how do we reduce it to manageable proportions? So what do we do then? We just try to say that out of 474 individuals from whom we have collected data, X% are male and Y% are female. Now that will be using percentage in order to reduce huge amount of data in manageable proportion. For example, let us just go to one particular information, that is gender. I'll tell you about this software a little later. This is called SPSS. So gender. Now let us see what is the information. So out of 474, how many are females? Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
How many are able to how many are females? And how many are males?
216 females.
Are female and 258 are males, which is 45% is female and 54% is male. This is one summary of this data file, which we can have by using percentage. Is this clear to you? Is this clear to you? Take another one.
Yes, sir.
Take another information. Let us say we want to know what is the mean salary of female employees and what is the mean salary of male employees. So we want to know descriptives and we want to know the current salary. Okay, so there it is. The current salary minimum is 15,500 and 750. Maximum is $135,000. The average is $34,419. This is another kind of a summary of this information. Then we can have all kinds of summary. For example, here code book, you have current salary, and let us see current salary. What does it show? It shows mean is 34,419, standard deviation is 17,075, and so on and so forth. You also have Q1, first quartile, Q2, second quartile, and Q3, third quartile. So in this way, you can find out what is the mean salary or percentage male, percentage female, and we will discuss all these things later on. Right now, my aim or purpose is only to tell you as to what is descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is just describing the data or summarizing the data by means of some statistical measures like mean, median, mode, standard deviation, correlation, regression, some charts like bar chart, pie chart, etc. Is this clear? What is descriptive statistics? Is this clear, my dear friend?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So go back to our definition of descriptive statistics. It is reducing huge amount of data to manageable proportions by using such measures as percentages, means, standard deviation, and correlation coefficient. Summary measures sometimes could be misleading unless cautiously interpreted. So remember that these summary measures can be sometimes very, very misleading. Now tell me, what if you are told by a business school that the average package offered last year to our students was 15 lakh per annum? What conclusion do you draw from this single piece of information?
So skewness might have affected the mean. So
Sorry?
skewness might have affected
students, some students may have got a package of more than 15 lakhs and some students may have got a package of less than 15 lakhs.
Okay. What does the average give you an indication of?
So it will be skewed.
It will be skewed. With this information, we cannot say whether it is skewed or not. But what we are actually trying to see is that an information like this could be misleading. An information like this could be misleading. Why? Because very high salary offered to just one or two passing out students may lead to an inflated average. Most students may be receiving very low offers of very low salaries, but one or two, let us say, international placement offered in dollar terms and then later converted into Indian rupees may lead to a conclusion that the average salary is 15 lakh. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Just
Yes,
to give you one example, suppose you have these numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. What is the average of these 5 numbers?
5.
5.
So the average is 5. Now let us say we have 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 70,000. The last number is 70,000. What is the average? It is roughly 14,000 something.
Yes, sir.
14,000.
Is it? It's roughly 14,000, maybe something more, 14,002 or 14,003. So compare this 5 with 14,000. Which average, 5 or 14,000, gives you the right picture?
5.
5 gives you the right picture because most people are around 5. But here in the second case, just because the salary of one person is 70,000, the average has turned out to be 14,000. So this can be misleading. And many business schools try to mislead potential students by saying that the average salary offered to passing out students was 14 lakh, 15 lakh, 17 lakh, and so on and so forth. What they should do is, instead of giving arithmetic mean as the average, they should give median as the average, which is what? The middle value. So middle value is still 5, even if this 70,000 is 7 lakh. So median is 5 in case of the first one, 5 in case of the second one. So the main point that I'm trying to emphasize is that you should always be on your guard, because summary measures can sometimes misleading conclusions. Then there is something, again, I'm going back to research methodology, and this is something which we will discuss later on, or maybe we will not discuss it. Some of you may have read some equation or functional forms like this. Y is a function of x1, x2, x3, and x4. What does this actually mean? Y is a function of x1, x2, x3, and x4. Can anyone tell me what does this actually mean?
So y is a dependent variable which depends upon 4 variables x1, x2, x3, and x4, and all these are
Very
independent.
good, very good. Absolutely wonderful. So let us say Y stands for productivity in the agricultural field. X2 is the, let us say, irrigation facility. X2 is the quality of seeds that you have applied in your field. X3 is the amount of fertilizer that you have applied in your field. And X4 is the technology which you have applied in your field in order to cultivate that crop. So there are 4 factors which will make the agricultural productivity dependent on them. Now, just go to this particular paragraph. When independent variables in a regression model are correlated, then we call it multicollinearity. Now, this function which I have just shown is what is called a regression model. Why is it called a regression model? All those questions will be answered later. Remember that, as one student just beautifully explained, Y is dependent variable, and all the variables mentioned on the right hand side are independent variables. They are all independent variables. What it means is that Y depends on X, but X does not depend on Y. X are independent, Y is dependent. But what may happen is that X1 may be X1 and X2 may be correlated, X2 and X3 may be correlated, X3 and X4 may be correlated, and by the law of transitivity, if X1 is related to X2, x2 is related to x3 and x3 is related to x4, then x1 must be related to x4. x2 must be related to x4. x3 must be related to x4 and x1 and x2 and so on. When this kind of a thing happens, we call it multicollinearity. Then any change in y will not be able to explain whether it is happening because of x1 or x2 or x3 or x4. So we must isolate the effects of one variable on an independent variable, which is explained by say 9 or 10 independent variables. Now, that issue is quite complex, and that issue is discussed under a branch of statistics which is called multivariate analysis. The premier business schools like XLRI and IIMs offer a course on multivariate analysis. I'm sorry to say that we do not offer a course on multivariate analysis, but I can guide you to very good online and offline sources to learn about multivariate analysis. But this is also a branch of descriptive statistics. Okay? Fine. Next is even more important, that is inductive or inferential statistics. So what is inductive statistics? Do you know the meaning of the word inductive? Induction. There is something called deduction. Induction and deduction. So let me give you one very simple example. Suppose you have a plus b whole square. This is an equation. Can you break it or simplify it further? A square plus
A square plus b square plus 2ab.
a square plus 2b plus b square. What about this? What about this? A minus b whole square?
A square minus 2ab plus b square.
A square minus 2ab plus b square.
Plus b square.
ठीक है? अच्छा, I'm asking this question from everyone, but please respond only if you feel that you are the only person or only one of the few persons who should answer this question. Anyone who does not understand Hindi, please let me know. Okay, so nobody has said anything. Means all 70 odd students who are in my class today understand Hindi. Can I draw this conclusion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Now, so when we write a plus b whole square is equal to this much, what do we say? Or what term do we use in mathematics? We say from a plus b whole square, we deduce that a square plus 2ab plus b square. So basically, mathematics is all about deduction. Mathematics is all about deduction. So if you have, say, a square plus 2ab plus b square, so you can say this is equal to a plus b whole square. So this is what we call deduction. Is this clear? So remember, all mathematics are deduction or deductive logic. What is inductive logic? So let us say I write something like this. I write something like this. Ram is a good boy. Shyam is also a good boy. Julie is a good girl. Therefore, all the people living in a certain locality, called X, are good human beings. Now, what kind of a logic have I followed here? I have looked at some individual cases. What cases have I looked at? Ram, I have looked at Shyam, I have looked at Julie, and on the basis of these three, what have I done? I have
you
drawn
generalize.
conclusion about everybody. I have drawn conclusion about everyone. Everyone means people who belong to a locality from where Ram, Shyam, and Julie come from. So when we follow this kind of a logic, wherein you draw conclusion from particulars to general, from particulars to whole, then it is called inductive logic. Inductive logic. So basically, statistics deals with inductive logic. What we do under statistics, we look at some cases, only a few cases, and then we draw a conclusion about whole population or a whole society. Now, some of you who are attending this course today may have come from Delhi, or you may be in Delhi right now. How many of you are from Delhi? Can you just tell me? I'll count if you respond. I'll just count on my fingers.
Sir, I am from Delhi.
Okay, 1,
Same here, sir. Delhi.
2, 3.
Sir, I'm also from Delhi.
Okay, 3, 4. So there are some from Delhi. Okay, dear friends from Delhi, do you know that in Delhi, 2 surveys have been conducted recently? The name of the survey was Sero survey. Do you know that?
So what survey?
Sero survey or Sero survey. I do not know exactly how it is pronounced.
Zero survey. Zero survey.
Yeah. Anyone who knows what is Sero survey?
Yes, sir. Like in Zero survey, they have they select a sample size and they see like how many people have developed the antibodies regarding the COVID-19. They select a particular area.
So I think it is concluded that every 1 in 4 person in Delhi has been infected, like asymptomatic.
Exactly. So roughly 24% of the sample tested have been found to be have been found to have developed antibodies against COVID-19, which means that at some point in time, they were all infected with COVID-19. They may no longer be infected with COVID-19, but at some point in time, the antibodies present in their body clearly show that they were infected with COVID-19. Now, what was the size of the sample? Let us say the size of the sample was 25,000. And out of 25,000, we found that 24% of the sample were positive or were having antibodies. Now, what we have done is we are generalizing this 24% to cover the entire population of Delhi. What is the population of Delhi?
3 crores.
1.9 crore or around between 1.9 and 2 crore. So out of, let us say 2 crore, if 24% are positive, how many are positive?
75% around positive.
No. Out of 2 crore, how many people are expected to have infected? 50 lakh. Because around 50 lakh, that is 25% of 2 crore. Okay. So what is it that I am trying to say? That we are not saying that 24% of 25,000. What are we saying? We are saying 24% of 2 crore. 24% of 2 crore. So basically, we conducted a sample survey of 25,000 people in Delhi, and the results were 24% positive. But we are generalizing this result. We are generalizing this result for the entire population of Delhi. We are saying that the entire population of Delhi में कितना लोग को COVID-19 हो चुका है? 25% को. So this is what we call inductive statistics. When we draw conclusions or inferences about the entire population on the basis of a study of a sample, then that is called inductive statistics. Is this
Sir, can
clear?
I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, isn't this concept also a fallacy? Because in economics, it is also considered a fallacy to determine what is true for a part is also true for a larger population.
That is, this particular thing is not economic logic. This is statistical inference. This is based on scientific analysis of data. This is based on what is called research methodology. So when you follow certain methods and arrive at a certain conclusion, then only that conclusion is assumed to be valid for the whole population. However, remember that we may still be making a mistake, because the first thing that I told you today is that statistics neither prove anything nor disproves anything. So when we are drawing this conclusion that 24% of the population of Delhi have developed antibodies, we are drawing this conclusion on the basis of a survey conducted on a small sample of about 20,000 people, or maybe just 20,000 people. But after following the due procedure of, say for example, what is the technique of sample selection? Who will precisely be the people who will be tested for sero survey? So all those questions, if you have correctly followed the procedure, then chances are very high that you can generalize the conclusion about this thing for the whole population. This is not economic logic. We can draw conclusion about the whole population on the basis of a study of sample, provided we follow the certain guidelines, provided we follow certain research methodology. So that is why we say that inductive statistics is nothing but inferring properties of a population. We just try to infer properties of a population on the basis of sample results. So the sample result was 24% on sample of 24,000 or 25,000, but we generalized it to cover the population of Delhi, the entire population of Delhi. This is not fallacy of composition, because there is a logic behind what we call induction. I just showed you an example. Ram is a good boy, Sham is a good boy, Julie is a good girl. Therefore, all human beings living in that locality are good human beings. Of course, there is a problem with this definition. This conclusion. You can always say, how can you say about the entire population on the basis of looking at only 3 individuals? You can always question it. But remember that this inductive statistics follows a mathematical logic, which is based on probability theory. I'm coming to that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Population, I've been using this term population. What is population? Population is the total collection of measurements of all observations being studied by a researcher. And this population need not necessarily be a group of people. It could be anything, like frozen deserts in a shipment. It could be anything. So population is total collection of measurements. And sample is the subset or portion of the population. So when we said 25,000 people were surveyed in Delhi, then that was a sample out of a population of 2 crore. And we use a term called census, and I'm sure each one of you must have heard of it or read about census. It is a study of an entire population of interest by the researcher. So when you conduct a population study, we call it census. When you conduct a study of a subset of the population, then what do we call it? Sample study. So this statistical inference is just another name for inductive statistics. So we just use the term. What term did we use? Inductive statistics, isn't it? We use the term inductive statistics. And we can also use another term for it, which is what? Inferential statistics or statistical inference. So statistical inference is just another name for inductive statistics, and it is based directly on the theory of probability. We thus have a purely deductive discipline, that is probability, providing a rational basis for inductive reasoning. Now look at the beauty of statistical inference. Statistical inference is what kind of a reasoning? What kind of a reasoning is inductive statistics? It is inductive reasoning, but is based on deductive reasoning. So the basis of inductive reasoning is deductive reasoning. Why? Because inductive reasoning or statistical inference is based on the theory of probability, which is nothing but mathematics, and mathematics is nothing but deduction or deducing something from something else. So that is why it's such a beautiful concept and discipline. Next, why statistical inference? You can ask this question कि भाई 25,000 लोगों के बीच में ही क्यों किया, पूरे 2 करोड़ लोगों का कर लेते, आप क्या होगे?
Saves time, money, lots of factors.
आपके पास इतना टाइम नहीं है, इतना मनी नहीं है, आप उतना लोगों का कर पाओ. So the first thing is the time cost factor. This is the first factor. You do not have enough time, you do not have enough money to conduct census. And population may be infinite. You may not know what population actually is. It may be infinite. Say, for example, stars. What is the population of stars? All you can say is that there are billions of stars, but exactly how many? And can we reach all of them? We cannot. So therefore, sometimes it's just not possible to conduct a population study. And the goal is always some kind of generalization and replication of results. The goal is always some kind of generalization and replication of results under similar conditions. So basically, when we are doing inferential statistics, what is that we are trying to see? We are just trying to generalize the results for covering the entire population on the basis of just a sample. Remember that we will pay not too much attention on descriptive statistics, but we will pay a great deal of attention on statistical inference in these classes. So we are now into a phase where we can see what is the place of statistics in research process and what are its limitations. Now, this is a very, very important discussion. Remember that if you fail to understand this discussion, you will fail to understand the logic of statistics. So what I propose to do is, I propose to discuss this place of statistics in research process tomorrow. We are still left with some 7 or 8 minutes. I think we can take up some questions for discussion. Okay. Hello. So I'm stopping sharing of my screen, and you are now invited to ask questions. Most welcome.
So my question is about the paper in general. That is this more of a theory-based paper, or like there would be some practical problem solving as well?
Excellent question. I thought somebody will ask this question. What led you to ask this question, ma'am? What is your good name?
Sir, my name is Rini Joshi.
Sorry?
Sir, Rini Joshi.
Okay, Rini Joshi. Yeah. Rini, what led you to ask this question? Amazing. I thought somebody will ask this question.
So because like so far there has been a lot like extensive theory that we have read in this particular lecture today. So I was just wondering if there is some practical, because like we would be able to understand it better once we are able to implement all of this theory.
That's awesome. Just hold on for a second. Just hold on. Okay, so I expected this question because when you started attending today's class, you must have thought lots of numericals and numbers will be given to us, etc. But nothing of the sort has happened. I have been only lecturing and using texts and logical arguments, etc. Remember that statistics is not just collection of facts. It's about logic. So basically, after 2 or 3 sessions, maybe after 2 sessions, most of our sessions will be numerical. Maybe 80% of our sessions will be based on solving numerical problems and then trying to understand what is behind the solution of a numerical problem. But we will be very generous in supplying the logic behind those numericals. That is why I told you in the very beginning that my classes on quantitative techniques, which is a misnomer, I should call it class on statistics, will be slightly different from the rest of the lot. You may not have attended a class like this earlier in terms of statistics. Got it?
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Any other question? But good question. Very good question.
Sir, Shubham here, sir.
Yeah.
When we were discussing the numbers, sir, as you said, the average we take 4 or 5 numbers and we take among them we take a number and somehow from the middle we get the average of it, right, sir? So and you said like if we get a huge number among it, so it disrupts the whole mean of the mean of the total quantity which we are getting. So I read in a open journal that if in real time data, when there is a very huge number present in the data set, and there is always a data which is present which is contrary to that data, so the whole of the data always gets nullified, sir. So I just wanted to ask how much of this statement is true, and that's it.
No, I'll tell you, I don't know what did that word nullified or affected mean, but normally when you collect data, it's quite possible that you will get what is called an outlier. Have you heard of this term, outlier? That is something which is different from the rest of the data. Like we had first 4 data, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the last data was 70,000. That 70,000 was an outlier. Or suppose we have numbers like 1 lakh, 1,10,000, 1,20,000, and then there is another number which is equal to 10. So 10 is an outlier. So remember that there is always a great possibility of having either lower outliers or upper outliers in a set of data. And we will do well to analyze the presence of outlier as to why such an outlier exists. But remember that if you calculate summary measures without removing those outliers, then it will give you a wrong impression. It may mislead you. Therefore, normally when we calculate arithmetic mean, we do so only if there is no outlier. If there is an outlier, then we avoid using arithmetic mean. Instead, we calculate median. Right?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir.
Say, for example, you are a batch of 75 students. Now, one or two may have come from, say, some church which has sponsored that candidate and maybe 45 years old. But most of you are just 21, 22. But there is one student amongst you who is 45 years old. So what is that student? An outlier. You have to analyze why do we have presence of a person who is 45 years old amidst people who are just 21 and 22.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question?
Sir, Lokesh this side.
Yeah, Lokesh.
Sir, can we get the PPT which you have prepared for the notes and all that you are presenting to us?
I will share it with you. Don't worry. Once we are through the discussion of this PPT, I will share it with you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Any other question? None? So I would like you to spend some time today in the evening about deductive logic and inductive logic. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I feel
that
not many students are still very convinced about the terms induction and deduction. Remember, induction is drawing conclusion about the whole population on the basis of individual cases. So X, Y, Z, and therefore everything. That is induction. Deduction is what we call mathematical logic. A minus B whole square, therefore you can deduce that it is equal to A square minus 2AB plus B square. Similarly, if you have square root 25, this is, so you can deduce that it is equal to 5. So basically, you have to understand the difference between deductive and inductive, and also understand that statistics is all about statistical inference, which is based on inductive logic. And this inductive logic is based on deductive logic because it is based on the theory of probability. So we have to study the theory of probability well, otherwise we will not be able to understand this inductive logic. So this is a beautiful contradiction which we have been emphasizing to our students all the time. Remember that unless you combine research methodology with statistical methods, you will not actually be able to understand what statistics does to you and to your life. Thank you very much, my dear friends.
Thank you so much.
I have not wasted your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
For
Thank you, sir.
your time, and I hope you will join
Thank you,
tomorrow
sir.
at 10:20. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, attendance?
Thank you, sir.
Attendance?
Attendance I have taken. I have taken attendance.
Sir, like I have missed it. I had some network problems, sir. Roll number 50.
Yes, sir. I have also missed it.
Yes,
Sir, me too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So have I.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have visit too.
Same here, sir.
Okay, let me just check. Let me just check. I am opening this. Acha, what is your name, my dear friend?
Sir, Aditi Vinay, roll number 50.
No, roll number is not available. Your name is Amitesh.
Sir, Aditi Vinay.
Aditi.
Aditi Vinay.
Aditi.
So there are two Aditis, sir.
I don't find even one. Aditi Vinay. There is one. Aditi
Yes, sir.
Vinay.
The another is
Yes,
Aditi Deepak.
Aditi. Aditi Deepak. Yeah, both are.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Lokesh Jajodia.
Thank you very much, my dear friend.
Sir, Vidushi Sharma, roll number 30.
Roll number 27.
Vidushi
Roll number 61.
number 5, sir. The Prerna Kumari, room 34.
सुनो ना,
विदुषी
नाम बताने होगा। नाम बताया आपने?
Sir, Vidushi
Saurabh
Sharma.
Kumar.
विदुषी, एक मिनट, एक करके बाबू।
Sir, we have written in the chat box.
हाँ ठीक है, लेकिन मैं तुमको अगर तुमको अभी थोड़ा सा भी शक हो तो मैं चेक करके बता दूंगा।
Vidushi Sharma.
विदुषी, हाँ विदुषी शर्मा है। और किसी को?
Sir, Ananda
Lokesh
Manjunath,
Jajodia.
35.
Actually, I told you,
So 52.
Lokesh.
do not worry at all, because total number will present is 2 and list of all 70, including myself. But there is one So maybe we are missing on one student. I don't know, but this 72 includes me. So which
Sir,
the
32, please check. 32.
59.
Roll numbers are not with me. I can only check your name.
Sir,
could
you
locate
Kumar?
The two girls. The two girls. Yeah. What is the first one?
Sir, Ritika Sen.
Ritika. Just hold on. Ritika. Ritika Sen है. और बताओ.
प्रेरणा कुमारी.
तीन चार आवाजें एक साथ आई. फिर से बोलो.
प्रेरणा कुमारी.
Sir, can you please take the name of all the students that you have?
Yes, sir.
like,
That
you
will be
have the
more easy,
list,
sir.
and any of us who is missing, we can just tell you.
Okay. Okay, you're making me work very hard. Okay, no problem. Abhay Kal, Abhishek De, Akriti
Yes, sir.
Goswami, Amarjit Kumar, Amitesh Gaurav. I'm reading the names who are present. Gargi Parashar, Himanshu Lakda, Jithin George, Karamjeet Singh, Ketan Kamal, Khushbu Bala, Adrita Datta, Ananta Khayati, Kunal Kumar, Leena Ekka, Lokesh Jajodia, Madhurima Barla, Mrinalini Sharma, Nisha Kumari, Nishita De, Oshin Khalko, Pooja Vaishnavi Bhagat, Prerna Kumari, Richa Anamika Bala, Shalja Tirki, Shreya Somvanshi, Shreya Samson, Shubham Sonakshi, Steffi, Suman Kumari, Tanvi Pandey, Vidushi, Aditi, Deepak, Ankit Raj, Tirki, Asha Shukla, Chandra, Ulla, Dishan, Shefali, Mithra, Oshin, Nidhi Singh, Rini Joshi, Anchit Kumar, Ashish Horo, Deep Shikha, Karan Singh, Kumar Vishesh, Vinay, Soumya Guria, Sumit Case, Robin Singh, Ritika Sen, Rishabh Burman, Adya Kashyap, Asta Singh, Abhishek Karua, Ankita Roy, Preti, Gyan Mohapatra, Manav Harit, Pratik, Aditi, Vinay, Ananya Bhattacharya, Praful Tudu, Pragya Barla, Sarfraz Alam, Saurabh Kumar, Sayantika Mondal, Smriti Paswan, सुमेधा सेन गुप्ता. कोई बता रहा था स्मृति पासवान नहीं आ पाई हैं आज.
Sir, Bushra, have you taken my name?
Sir, Smriti Paswan present.
बुशरा आपका नाम मैंने लिया. बिल्कुल.
आशीष है बाकी आपका.
सबका है. यस, सबका है. डोंट वरी.
Sir, Smriti Paswan present.
हाँ, वो तो तुम्हारा है बाबू. स्मृति पासवान, वो मेरे को किसी ने चैट में लिखा कि वो नहीं कर पा रही है क्लास. मैं तो देख रहा हूँ कि तुम्हारा नाम है. ठीक है. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Sir, I want to ask one.
Thank you. हाँ, बोलो.
सर आपने दो वर्ड्स बोले ना, जिसको आपने बोला कि just go through it once. The words were not audible, sir, at that moment.
Deductive logic and inductive logic.
Logic and inductive logic.
मैं chat box में लिख रहा हूँ.
Deductive logic.
Yes, sir, that will be good.
हाँ. Deductive. एक मिनट बाबू. Deductive logic and inductive logic. Find out the difference between these two. Deductive logic and inductive
You don't have
logic.
our roll numbers.
Look, I'll explain it to you. What happens is that when we conduct the meeting on Google Meet, then there is an extension, Chrome extension, which is called Google Meet Attendance Collector. So I have taken this attendance, which gives me a total attendance of 72 people. But the Google Meet Attendance Collector does not know the roll number of those people who are attending the meet. So it only gives me the names. So I have the name list who attended today's class, and I will mark them present once we have the institute reopened. Okay.
Sir, but Amitesh has
Yes,
a list
sir.
in which he has the name and roll numbers of all the students. So if in case we
मैडम
want to
एक मिनट
share
रुक जाइए, मैडम एक मिनट। हाँ हाँ हाँ, बोलिए मैडम, बोलिए क्या?
Sir, Amitesh has a list of all the students along with their roll numbers. So if you want, then we
ना
can
मेरे
share
पास भी है रोल नंबर लिस्ट, लेकिन जो मीट कलेक्टर से मेरे को मिला ना, वो उसमें खाली नाम लिखा है, रोल नंबर नहीं लिखा है। वो तो रोल नंबर तो हम लोग के पास है ही।
Thank you, sir.
जैसे आपका जो ईमेल आईडी है ना, ईमेल आईडी में भी तो रोल नंबर लिखा है।
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
वो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है।
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Sir, how's your mother? I forgot to ask.
My mother is not well. I'm very sorry to inform you, but what to do? And we are trying to get some help, and help is also not coming through. Yesterday we had someone coming from outside to take care of my mother. Today she has not turned up, so it's becoming very, very difficult. And she's very agitated right now. So I'm sorry, but what can we do? But thank you very much, dear friends, for your prayers and for your support. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, actually, I want to ask that. Hello.